Hi again, everybody. I'm Jamie Allison. This is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different genres, different niches, just people doing really cool things in their space. So we talk to a lot of athletes. We talk to CEOs, entrepreneurs, just people, again, doing really cool things that we can take bits and pieces of their journey and hopefully apply some of them to our lives as well. And I know I have one of those guests today. Just before we jump into that, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know we have a connection with Epitome Sportswear. And now that at least here we're in Canada, so the weather's starting to turn and all those fun things, it's a good time to get out there and do hikes and things like that. And that's what we really like about our partnership with Epitome Sportswear, because it's not just high performance gear, it's things that that you might do just enjoying going out and going for that hike, or going to watch your child play soccer, whatever you like to do at this time of year. So check it out. But the other thing that's really aligned with us as well is that they like to give back to the community that they serve, and they actually take a portion of their proceeds and put it towards organizations that help provide opportunities for girls and women in sport. And so really a nice thing from our perspective as well. So take a look on our Instagram profile. There is a connection through there as well. And I think there's a 20% discount code. So feel free to use that. Otherwise, you can go directly to them as well, which is Epitome Sportswear. So EPITOME sportswear.com, and see if there's something there that makes sense for you. So today, really excited to have Holly Carroll with us today. She's a successful international realtor with the agency, especially in Muskoka. She is the author of Selling Secrets You Can't Afford to Miss, and has her own initiative called Finding the Beauty Within that helps teach girls self-confidence and self-worth. She was Miss Canada Tourism in 2017-2018, has been featured as a top real estate agent to watch in Huffmag, and was featured in MarketWatch as well. So lots of cool things there. And maybe I'll ask, Holly, I was just talking about how things have kind of changed in the weather and all those fun things. Do you miss the Muskoka summer, or is it, are you enjoying when you get into kind of some of those fall things as well? Like, do you have a favorite time, I guess, from that end?
To be honest with you, fall is my favorite time in the Muskoka because of the leaves and just how beautiful and picturesque it is.
Yeah, me too. I was up there this weekend actually, and it was really, really nice. So, one of the things that we talked about just before we came on here is that you've got kind of an eclectic background, and kind of moving into realty is something that it fits, but at the same time it's a little bit different, coming from kind of a more kind of urban background into kind of some of the stuff that you're doing now in that area. So why don't you work us through a little bit about your career path? How did you get here with the agency, and talk to us about that?
Yeah, so I was a international model for 17 years. And then, of course, I was Miss Canada Tourism, as you mentioned, 2017, 2018. So it wasn't really a corporate world. It wasn't really a sales world. It
Hmm.
was, it was a modeling world, a pageant world. So there was some degree of learning and growing that I had to grow into. The best part about it is that really in any types of sales, you just got to be yourself.
Yeah.
So I talk about this quite a bit. Is when I first started, I tried to be somebody else. I tried to be that corporate realtor, and it just didn't work. And it wasn't that fun to try to be somebody else.
Yeah.
So as soon as I kind of meshed the two, I got to kind of still be the model and the beauty pageant. As soon as I meshed the two, my career really took off, and that had a lot to do with self worth, self growth, personal development, professional development.
Hmm.
Also, when I joined the agency, they're really big on marketing, and I just felt like it was such a good fit for me,
Yeah.
and I could use all the modeling and all the beauty pageant, and I even coined myself as the Queen of Muskoka. So it really went well together. And then as soon as it clicked, I didn't have to worry about being anybody else. I could just be myself authentically every day.
Yeah. Well, and it is one thing that you've mentioned, that because I mean, you do it as well as the organization that you work with, is that it is about kind of a broader experience, and just how does that fit for you? Because you've kind of mentioned it does fit, it's in your wheelhouse and that kind of thing, but how does that make a difference? Like for those people who are listening who may be not realtors, we have lots of entrepreneurs that those same kind of
Absolutely.
things apply across industries. How do you see kind of creating an experience being able to fit into what you do?
Yeah, I think in any type of sales, in anything that you're doing in building an impact, you have to create emotion, right? And so for me in Muskoka, there's a lifestyle. I mean, you were just
Mhm.
at the beer spot. It's a
Yes.
lifestyle. It's happy birthday, by the
Yeah,
way.
thank
Happy
you.
belated birthday. So it's a lifestyle, and I think when people watch anything that I have on Instagram or social media, it's a fun lifestyle that I'm living. It's not just pounding real estate down people's throats.
Hmm.
So, and I also think that that helps that I'm authentically myself when I'm doing it as well, so that people can kind of get to know me before they actually meet me in person.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it is interesting to see, how that fits across different aspects of everyone, everyone's life, that they're out there, and realizing that if you're in a small business, some of those things are applicable either way, about being able to create
Absolutely.
that connection with people. Um, you talk a lot about confidence. Is that something that not only do you obviously, people right now think, okay, well, you seem very confident, Holly, and all those things. Have you always been that way? And is it something that you think can you grow that? Can you expand on it?
You absolutely can grow on it. I feel like we do have it inside us, but it's a muscle that we do have to work on. Um, there's a couple of key things that help me with my confidence. I mean, any new business that you start, anything that you are going into, you're going to need confidence, and you may not have confidence at the beginning. I can't sit here and say that I was the most confident person when I first got into real estate. I
Mhm.
had to work on that muscle,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
the few things that you can do, I mean, one of the biggest things for me was surrounding myself with other dreamers and other people that had confidence. I mean, that's a huge one, because there's a lot of times where things don't go the right way, and or there's naysayers, and that can really get you. And if you don't have somebody that believes in you, and if you then you can slowly kind of start to fade away.
mhm,
um I also do a lot of self-care, a lot of self-love. I do a lot of affirmations. I fully believe that whatever you put in your mind is what comes out. So garbage in, garbage out. On the flip side, what you're putting in on a positive note is what's coming out.
yeah.
So I really protect my mindset. I protect what I watch. I protect what I listen to. These types of podcasts, I love listening to these. These are inspiring things to help you become more confident. I don't watch the news, like things that I know that might subconsciously break me. I do not watch that.
Mhm.
um Biggest thing, I guess, surround yourself with people, and then there's a lot of self growth that can happen throughout that will help you build confidence.
Well, and what goes with that as well, and is really important in the line of work that you do, is building those connections and networking and some of those things. Are there, starting out fresh in an industry like that, was that something that, what did you do to make sure that you could build enough of a network, and how do you continually do that to kind of build out, people that create referrals, create just that ability to get your name out there?
The main thing that I do is I visualize who I want to be and how I want to act in those types of situations. I also think about which clients I want, but not just financially, but what kind of people I want to be around. So in a real estate transaction, it's you really have to become friends with somebody, and it's not just like a one phone call one off. I mean, you're going to be in a relationship with them. So I think about who I want to attract, and what kind of people they are.
Mhm.
Um, and I really think about that, and I visualize that before that even happens.
Right. And are there times, like, because you're going to be talking to people that some people would be thinking, okay, some of those people are CEOs, they are people that are probably, have a perception of being very powerful. How do you have the confidence to be able to move that forward and reach out to those people? Because there's lots of people here that, probably that fits in what they would like to be able to do as well. Do you find it still intimidating? Do you find it difficult to do?
Yes, I can't sit here and say that that's not intimidating at sometimes, but I choose not to believe that thought.
Hmm.
So, I kind of say, okay, thank you. That was intimidating, but I'm still going to move forward. And I believe without an unwavering doubt that I will be successful. So I lead into everything I do with that unwavering belief in myself.
Hmm.
So, and then of course, a couple times in transactions, you build a little bit more confidence. But I do feel that confidence comes first because they're almost sharks. They can smell that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. um, if when you go into to something like this, I mean, you've written a book now, you've done a bunch of things, so obviously you do kind of take opportunities as they come, and that's one that comes probably almost completely from yourself. Is you have to be able to create those things yourself. Um, how do you set goals for yourself? I mean, if you're talking to these higher level people and making sure that you connect with the right people and the right mindsets, how do you approach goal setting? Like, are you a person who writes everything down? How do you go into that process?
I get very, very, very clear
Mhm.
at what I want and who I will be in that position. So I get very, very clear. I write it out in detail daily,
Mhm.
and I write it out in detail in a form where, say, if somebody didn't know me or didn't even know anything about real estate, they can picture that in their mind. So I do a lot of visualization, I do a
Mhm.
lot of writing, I do a lot of goal setting. I do that every day, and then when the goal gets to be approached, I set the goal even further.
Now, when you say
Uh,
that someone else could read it, is it because it's descriptive, or is it because it's very
Correct.
specific? Is that what you mean?
Both, both.
Okay.
So the idea of the goal and the dream, um, to write it down in so much detail and to get so clear is that I can visualize it in such detail that I can feel it. And then if so much that somebody, if they read it and didn't know me, didn't know the goal, they can figure it out too. So that's just
Yeah.
a tip for how detailed you should be in writing your goals and your dreams and your desires.
Now you've kind of set up your own organization that you work with young girls in building confidence and some of those things. Are those things that you connect in with that, or what kind of things do you kind of talk to young girls about in being able to help build their own self-worth and self-confidence?
Yeah, so my company, Finding the Beauty Within, is a workshop for young women, the ages of 11 to 18. We touch on a lot of stuff. We mainly touch on self worth.
Mhm.
We talk about walking with confidence. We talk about all the things that they could potentially go through during their, puberty and during their high school years. We talk about how to compliment somebody. We talk about how to respectfully decline the opposite sex. We talk about so much stuff. And again, it creates this safe space for these women to sort of go through this stuff with someone else other than their mother or their father, right? Because
Sure.
they're probably not being as honest. So it's a safe space for them to be honest, and then we work through it with them. We've had women and testimonials that have come through this course, and one girl, she couldn't even walk through the halls of her high school when she first started the workshop.
Mhm.
And after the workshop, she walks down with pride. And she helps other women to walk down with pride. So it's this ripple effect as well. Like, confidence isn't just so you can become successful, it's actually to impact the world. And it's not these huge, you know, breaking down barriers. It's just these little things that you can do to help you impact yourself and impact the world.
Yeah, yeah. How would those are cool things to hear about how you're impacting people. What is that like knowing that you're being a role model and giving back? Because I know you do a lot of that as well, outside of even just what we just talked about. But is obviously that's something important to you. Does it how does it feel to have young girls say that you've made an impact that way?
It melts my heart. There's nothing better. There's no better feeling than having that, because then they can go out and do that to their younger people that they meet as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like one of the reasons why I started this and wanted to do this in the first place is
Mhm.
because aside from my mom, I never had really good role model that I could look up to. And I just feel like this is truly one of my purposes in life. And when you look on social media, a lot of these younger women look up to these women that aren't really making the right choices, so they think it's cool. And that happened to me a lot in my life, where
Mhm.
alcohol and partying was glamorized because I didn't know really any better. I didn't have a role model that sort of directed me in the right direction. So I think that being a role model after becoming a professional model and a beauty queen, that it's like my duty to show these women that these are the right choices to make.
Yeah, it is interesting that that you do flag that there are so many people out there that would be role models, and but are they really kind of role modeling the right kind of behaviors and everything as well, which is interesting. That's a whole other conversation too, I guess. Um,
True.
but if you were like in your position now, because obviously you have lots of goals, do you have somebody or some people that you look up to that are role models for you now, or like in whether it's in the job that you're in, but also just kind of generally, or is there someone out there that you'd say, wow, if things were going the way I'd like them to be, and in a while, that's the kind of person I'd like to be like?
I have a huge role model, and she's my mentor, and her name's Kathleen Cameron.
Hmm.
She has impacted my life immensely. I also have a huge role model within Kat and Steve Bailey, who are
Hmm.
the owners of the Ontario agencies. They're amazing.
Hmm.
Um, the biggest thing about them too is that they believe in all of their agents, and they just act in a kind way, and just the way that they do business is just exactly how I want to be and exactly who I want to surround myself with.
Yeah, yeah. And we talked about goal setting a little bit, but if uh, going forward, I mean, what do you want to see? Where do you want yourself to go? Like, are you looking at pretty short-term things, or do you really set things up for a long period of time? Do you have a goal, like a big goal out there somewhere that you'd like to do one day?
I do. I am a huge dreamer.
Hmm.
Nothing is impossible for me.
Yeah.
Um, I I want to be a iconic international luxury realtor,
Hmm.
and I want to make a huge impact in this world, inspiring others to follow their dreams. Um, I also have a personal goal and a professional goal.
Hmm.
So they're pretty intertwined.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with impacting the world and just inspiring others. And when I say impacting the world, I don't necessarily mean that I have to be this huge famous person.
Hmm.
Impacting the world can just be a daily task of just being kind and being intentional with your actions. Um, but yes, I have a professional and a personal goal.
Yeah. Well, very, very cool. And when you look at the types of goals that you have over the next little while, um, how do you start to connect the dots for, like, if because some people will have a short-term goal that they kind of set in, that's pretty much just how can I do things in the next 6 months or so. Do you approach it as a much just break down a much larger goal, or do you have kind of a way to kind of do that, and then you kind of reset on a much larger goal when you do it?
So the goals that I write down daily are my end goals,
Hmm.
because it's that person that I'm trying to become. It's that person that I believe I'm going to become.
Right.
So I do focus on the end result. Um, and I have no idea how that's going to happen, but I
Yeah.
believe. So I focus a lot on my belief on how that's going to happen. And then I trust that the process will, unveil itself on
Hmm.
my way there.
Yeah.
I am very disciplined with my emotions and my actions. So I get in the habit daily of asking myself, does this support the life that I'm trying to create?
Yeah.
So, it's not necessarily that I write out the how to's, but I definitely ask myself when when faced with something, does this support this end goal?
Mm-hmm.
So I really focus on the end goal, and I try to do things daily that help me reach that goal, but it's usually on who I have to become, not the actions that I need to take.
Gotcha. Okay. And
That makes
yeah, absolutely. I think because I think that's what some people, depending on whether it's the looking at little things and they build towards something, or whether it's really kind of painting just a deeper picture of where they want to be, I think, and trying to get there. So, so when you look at realty is actually a really good example of it can be long hours. It can be at times where actually everybody else is, some of your busier times are on weekends and things like that in the middle of summer.
sense.
How do you make sure that you do find some balance? You talked about before you do some other things just to make sure that from a mindset you're balanced. But how do you or can you be feel balanced, knowing kind of you've got those extra long hours sometimes and all those things that just come with the job?
It's a great question, and I'm glad I'm able to answer this, because real estate can quickly take over you
Hmm.
and sort of dictate your life. And I don't want that for anybody, and it doesn't have to be like that. I take days off. I take personal days to go within, whether it be just to sit and do nothing and just listen. I love family. I have to be around my family. I usually feel it when it's getting too much, that,
Yeah.
whoa, I need to pull back.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about that is you need to check in with yourself, probably daily. If you miss a day, that's okay, but check in with yourself and just check in with how you're feeling.
Hmm.
And if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's a red flag to stop. I'm huge in meditation, and I'm huge in visualization, and I'm huge in prayer.
Yeah.
That's my non-negotiables. It doesn't have to be this big deal where I have to go to, the temple to do this.
Hmm.
But I definitely have to check in with myself. I have to check in with my higher power,
Yeah.
and I have to meditate and visualize. Those are a must. And a really good thing to do is to book your days off, not your days on,
Ah,
especially when
yeah.
you own your own business and you're in
Yes.
real estate.
Yeah, because it can very easily be the opposite. That if
Yeah,
you're people think I think if you own your own business or do real estate where it is that same kind of setup, um, it's pretty easy to schedule yourself all the time. So
all
that's
the time.
great advice. The other one is that very much a pure kind of real estate question now is that things if people are a little hesitant right now because obviously interest rates have gone up a little bit and there's some uncertainty and things like that. How do you address that with people? Have you had to address some of that lately, and is it something that has affected anything from your end?
Yeah, I think the real estate market is getting a little bit better right now. Obviously, the rates are a bit higher than they used to be, but I think that we're comparing it to a worldwide pandemic.
Hmm.
So that's your answer right there.
Yeah.
Things are kind of normalizing in the market now. That wasn't sustainable, and that wasn't a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think the market's actually normalizing right now. I think it's always a good time to buy real estate. However, it is certainly a buyer's market now rather than a seller's market. We know that. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's more to that conversation, and it's client by client.
Hmm.
I think that we should get clear at what you want, get clear at what you don't want, get clear at how high, how low, and we would just really break down what you really want, and we go from there.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone needs to be pushed in or out of real estate. I do see that a lot more buyers are coming around. I mean, how can we ever be certain, anyways? Like, there's no way to be certain at all. I think that huge spike of everybody scrambling to buy is gone for now.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, 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 but it is
Yeah,
interesting that I think that normalization is people are comparing it to something that was extremely abnormal for a period of time.
exactly.
So yeah, I think it's a good thing to flag for a lot of people. So one of the things that we ask everybody is that we try to have a couple of actionable items, and I know people have probably taken lots of those away, and but I'm going to hit you with another one that's probably pretty real estate focused for this one then, because I know we've got lots of stuff about goal setting and things that you've shared. But if people are looking at, they are thinking about, whether it's finding someplace or being able to connect with, whether it's a realtor or an agency to work with. Sometimes that can be difficult for people to try to figure out, how do I do that? Because there are lots of people out there, or lots of places out there. What are some of the things that you would recommend to look at to find somebody or an agency to work with?
I think the number one thing is to find a local agent.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are looking in the Muskoka um, market, find a local agent. I'm a
Yeah.
local agent in the
Yeah.
Muskoka market. Not to plug on me, but
No, but
I mean,
yeah.
I think you should find someone that has general knowledge of the area. I also think, I mean, this kind of goes without saying, but I think you should find somebody that you trust, that you like and they like you. Because again, it is a process, and then you need to trust the process. But I definitely find a local agent, someone that kind of is aligned with your goals and where you want to go, because there are agents that are a little bit more focused on something else than
Mm-hmm.
others, and that's fine too. But just make sure that your goals and your ambitions align with that agent that you're looking for. um, I'm speaking more of a buyer, but also for a listing agent as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just get to know them, get to know what they can do for you and what you can do for them.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, and it goes with that authenticity piece we talked about before as well, and really important, especially if you're. I mean, these are big transactions; they aren't small transactions, so it's important to be able to have mutual trust that way too. So, um, so if people are, and you did mention that there may be some people that kind of want to connect with you, but even just to follow what you're doing, and also and be able to maybe connect with you as well, if it makes sense from that end. What are some of the best ways to do that, Holly?
The best ways for me is Instagram.
Hmm.
So my Instagram is at Holly Ann Carroll. I also run a women's group that's
Mm.
absolutely fantastic. It's a safe space for us to collaborate, support, connect with one another.
Yeah.
And it is at Women Empower Women Co. And my workshops for the young women, Finding the Beauty Within, will be starting soon. And that's Finding the Beauty Within.
Awesome. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll put all those in the show notes as well. So if you
Okay.
miss those, we'll make sure that people can kind of directly go from the podcast to those as well. If you're listening and haven't hit subscribe in the podcast, do that right now. We have great people every week, just like Holly. So make sure that you make that connection. And again, I know things are probably nice and busy for you right now, Holly. But thanks for taking the time. I know the group has probably taken a lot away from our conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. And we will talk to everybody else again on Big Idea, Big Moves.